Hello guys, welcome back. My name's Nathan and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 30 best NHL prospects from 5 years ago in 2015. Now 2015 was an interesting time in my life. I was 12 years old and probably just playing my 3DS. That was pretty much it. But in the prospect landscape, things were getting really interesting with the 2015 draft looming. So, who were the top 30 best NHL prospects from 2015 and where are they now in 2020? Watch till the end for the full rankings and the full prospects. And of course, hit that big red subscribe button for more videos and more draft videos just like this one. Now, this top 30 NHL affiliated prospect list comes to us from Craig Button, from TSN of course, and this was made in January of 2015. So none of the 2015 draft prospects are on here, but maybe I'll do a 2016 one. Hit that like button if you want to see a video like that. But this was made in January, so this is mostly prospects from like the 2014, 2013, even the 2012 draft listed on here. But this list is super interesting. He basically just ranked the top 30 affiliated prospects at that point, and there were some interesting results with guys that absolutely blew his predictions out of the water, and also guys that just did not turn into anything. And we'll get started with the top 5 in his list, and starting us out with the number 1 best NHL prospect from January 2015 in Max Domi. Of course, he was picked by the Arizona Coyotes in the 2013 draft, and he was a player that at that point was looking very good. At that time was 19 years of age, and obviously was at the Arizona Coyotes as well. Now, Max Domi would later, of course, be traded to the Montreal Canadiens, and now is with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And yeah, that number 1 spot isn't exactly looking like the greatest. Definitely some players that have leapfrogged him on this list. Then at number 2, you have Sam Reinhart. Of course, number 3, Sam Bennett. Number 4, Andrei Vasilevskiy. And number 5, Nikolai Ehlers. Now, this top 5 just in general is super interesting. Again, you got Sam Reinhart, who was a part of that 2014 draft, was 2nd overall. He was with Buffalo, and you can see the stats there. That's a player that also might not be worthy of that number 2 spot. And then you have Sam Bennett, back-to-back Sams. And yeah, with the way that he's progressing on Calgary, not looking great at the top 3, even though he is progressing a lot more. Now, all 5 of these players are bona fide NHL players, and then you get into Andrei Vasilevskiy as the main goaltender on this list at number 4. I mean, he's below guys like Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart, but still pretty high up there. And at this point, he was 20 years of age. He was in the AHL, which is interesting to think about. But he definitely trending towards 2015, was looking like one of the best goalie prospects in the league, and definitely doesn't look out of place there. And then you have Nikolai Ehlers, who was just turning 18. Again, another guy who was in the 2014 draft, but a player that was looking like a great up-and-coming guy for the Winnipeg Jets. He comes in at number 5, which is very high for him. And then we go into the 6 to 10 spot, and this is where things get even more interesting. Starting off at number 6, you have Leon Draisaitl, and obviously the Edmonton Oilers. I think he was on Edmonton when this list was made. But that's a player that obviously wasn't looking like the best player or one of the best players in the league at that point yet. But coming at number 6, below guys like Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart, not exactly the greatest look either. At number 7, right next to Leon Draisaitl, you have Christian Dvorak. And Dvorak would still become a pretty solid player for Arizona, and he is progressing quite well. But a player that still has some work to do, that's for sure. Then at number 8, you have from the Chicago Blackhawks, Teuvo Teravainen. Now, of course, he was drafted by Chicago, would later be traded to the Carolina Hurricanes. But at that point, yeah, was looking like one of the better prospects in the world. So at number 8, it really does make quite a bit of sense. Then at number 9, you have Josh Morrissey from the Winnipeg Jets. Of course, he now is still at the Jets and pretty much playing as their number 1 guy at this point, when healthy at least. But yeah, Josh Morrissey has also progressed quite well too, so in the top 10, you can't really hate that too much. Then at number 10, you have Travis Sanheim from the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, he has also progressed quite nicely over these past couple of seasons. Now is in the top 4 for the Flyers with Philip Myers on that pairing, doing quite well. So, yeah, Travis Sanheim is a guy that has progressed a lot since his draft year 2, and a guy that's definitely looking like one of the better young defensemen right now in the National Hockey League. So at this point, all of these guys in the top 10 are bona fide solid NHL players, besides maybe a Sam Bennett, but even he is looking a lot better recently after those playoffs. So not too bad overall, even though a guy like Leon Draisaitl, number 6, is not looking like the greatest pick right now. But then it gets a little bit different and even more interesting at 11 through 15. And starting out as Anthony Mantha from the Detroit Red Wings. At this point, he was 20 years old. He was picked in the 2013 draft. That's a player that now has progressed into one of the better young wingers in the NHL and a fantastic player for the Detroit Red Wings. So at number 11, that's not too bad. Then going on to number 12 from the Edmonton Oilers, he had Darnell Nurse, another great, strong, quality defenseman. It has been getting better and better. I think that's a player that has more potential to give, but even at number 12, I mean, he could definitely be higher. Then you have Michael Dal-Cole, Sam Morin, and Dylan Larkin. Now, Michael Dal-Cole looked a lot better this past season and finally was able to get more of a consistent job with the Islanders. But even he is not looking like this amazing player, probably most likely going to be a decent bottom 6 guy. But then you have at number 14, Sam Morin, who has just not been able to get to the NHL level at all consistently. And he's over a guy like a Dylan Larkin at number 15, which is crazy to think about. Now, even then, Sam Morin was more on the older side. He was 19, and at that point, like when I was getting into hockey prospects, when I would look at a Sam Morin, I really didn't understand why he went as high as he did and would continue to be one of the best prospects in the NHL. To be number 14 is kind of ridiculous, but to be over guys like Dylan Larkin is not great. And then you get into Dylan Larkin, who's at number 15 in this list, which is pretty fantastic for Detroit at least, and would later, I think, prove that quite wrong. Definitely we're going to be in the top 15, and so far is Detroit's best player. Now we can get into the 16 to 20 spot, and we get into even more interesting guys. Now, 13 and 14 with Michael Dal-Cole and Sam Morin, you could probably say that both of those guys aren't complete NHL players, or at least in Morin's case, probably not going to make the NHL consistently. And then you have at number 16, William Nylander, and that's another guy that should be way higher when we look in hindsight. But I mean, to be honest, I'm not really even sure why he's this low. I don't know why he'd be at number 16, even when he was 18 after his draft in 2014, I'm pretty sure. William Nylander was looking like one of the best young wingers in the entire National Hockey League. And that's a player that definitely should have been higher. I think deserves to be higher, and we can now look in hindsight and see that as the case. Then you go at number 17 and future Leaf in Nick Baton. Nick Baton, the absolute GOAT himself, is coming in here at number 17 right ahead, or right below Dylan Larkin and William Nylander. So yeah, not the greatest thing there too, but Nick Baton was definitely looked at as one of the better young prospects in the NHL. I mean, he was just lighting up juniors whenever he can. And I still think Baton a couple of years ago should have been given a couple of better opportunities over the past few years, but it's just not come up to anything really. He's probably going to be a minor league player, and yeah, having him at number 17, not the greatest look either. Then you have a number 18 from my Dallas Stars in Julius Honka, and he recently re-signed with Dallas, which is kind of the complete 180 that 2020 is known for. But Julius Honka coming in at number 18 is also not the greatest thing ever. He really didn't even fit with Dallas too well. Maybe he gets a second chance somewhere else and plays well, but yeah, he's definitely not looking like the greatest fit for Dallas back when they had him in 2014. And yeah, number 18, I'm not sure how you could justify that now. Number 19, you have Shane Gostisbehere from the Philadelphia Flyers, and number 20 in Oliver Bjorkstrand from the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, Gostisbehere has been weird because ever since his rookie year, I think he's definitely been underwhelming, but he still has potential to be a top 4 D-man in the NHL, especially, of course, on offense. And as a Stars fan, I don't know. I'd rather have him over Julius Honka. That might just be me. We'll see. And then you have a number 20, Oliver Bjorkstrand, which I think has turned into one of the most underrated play drivers in the entire National Hockey League. A big part of that Blue Jackets offense. He comes in at number 20. I mean, he was 19 at the time of this listing. That's a player that definitely, I think, should be higher, and a guy that, in terms of underratedness, especially wingers, just goes way too much under the radar. Now we can kind of get into the later half of this top 30, and starting at number 21 is Adrian Kempe of the LA Kings. Now, Kempe is a guy that I still think has potential. Hasn't really done the greatest over the past couple of seasons, but I'm not really too mad at him getting a top 30 spot, to be honest. Then number 22, you have from the New York Rangers, Pavel Buchnevich, and he, of course, has turned into a strong middle six guy for the Rangers on that right wing, great power forward, good play driving ability as well, and a player that the Rangers definitely have a lot of value in. Not too bad at number 22, that's for sure. And number 23 from the St. Louis Blues in Robbie Fabry. He, of course, got traded to the Detroit Red Wings and has looked pretty good for Detroit thus far. So I'm personally hoping he continues that consistency, continues that production, because the guy certainly has always had the talent. It's just that injuries have kind of gotten in the way of that. It's good to see him finally producing, though, and living up to being one of the top prospects in the NHL. And then you go into number 24, and from the Anaheim Ducks, Shea Theodore. Now, this is probably one of the worst looks in this entire top 30. Only having Shea Theodore number 24 but at the same time, he was drafted later in the first round when Anaheim did end up getting him, and not a lot of scouts even had him that high in the first place. So I can kind of forget about this in Craig Button's case, but yeah, having Shea Theodore at number 24 just shows how much progress he's made over the past few years to become one of the elite defensemen in the NHL. And then at number 25, right next up, is Riley Barber, who I'm pretty sure is in the AHL, though I think I remember maybe he's hanging in the KHL. I'll probably put the graphic somewhere saying where he is, but my goodness, Riley Barber has definitely not lived up to potential. I remember in like NHL 17, he become pretty good, and I think he was like a medium top 6 or something for no reason, but Riley Barber back then was looking like a pretty solid prospect for the Caps. It's just never turned out to be the case. He never could really get out of the AHL either, and it kind of just slumped him at that point. And then at number 26, another guy that just has not been able to make him consistently in Montreal Canadiens first rounder, Nikita Scherbak. Now he comes in at number 26, and he was 19 at that point. That's a player, though, that was lighting up junior, a player that looked like he could be a top 6 guy for the Montreal Canadiens. It just never materialized. He could never really truly get out of the AHL level consistently, and now he's playing in the KHL back in Russia where he once was. And yeah, definitely not looking like the greatest chances of making it back to the NHL. Then at number 27, we get back-to-back busts in Derek Pouliot. At this point, he was still at the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was still 20 years old. But yeah, that was a player that was just one of the disasters, along with a lot of disasters in that 2012 draft. And I think now is with the Philadelphia Flyers system in the AHL, going to play in the AHL next season if there is an AHL season. And yeah, he's kind of come full circle. He might maybe get a few games, but at this point, I think he's pretty much an AHL for life. Then at number 28, you have a decent player in Kevin Fiala. Of course, drafted by the Nashville Predators. He was still in Nashville at that point when this list was made. Of course, would later be traded to the Minnesota Wild, and we all know what happened there. But Kevin Fiala, yeah, definitely should be a lot higher in this list, and being surrounded with guys like Pouliot and Scherbak, not the greatest look either. Then on to number 29. I mean, yeah, Kevin Fiala, I guess, is just being surrounded with all this crap in Mike Riley. Now, Mike Riley is an NHL defenseman, but back then was drafted by Columbus. I mean, he's an NHL defenseman, I guess, but in the top 30 prospect list, it's not exactly the greatest look. I keep saying not exactly the greatest look. I'm sorry. But yeah, in Mike Riley's case, I'm not sure if he deserved to be in this spot. And then at number 30, last but not least, from the St. Louis Blues, Ivan Barbashev. Now, Barbashev back then was looked at as a pretty good prospect. At this point, was 19 years old. Barbashev is a weird one because I still think he has a lot more potential with St. Louis, but in St. Louis, they have a lot of depth, and it's hard to get up in that lineup. So I don't exactly blame Barbashev too much, but he's a really solid depth player, really good all-around play, and I think he'll do quite well for St. Louis in the future, too. Definitely worthy of a top 30 spot. But yeah, there are a few prospects that weren't even included in this, but you have guys like Kevin Fiala at number 28, way down there, that have looked pretty good since then, in my humble opinion. Now, I just want to point out this last quote by Craig Button that was earlier in the article where he said, Calgary's Bennett had shoulder surgery after an injury in Calgary training camp, but watching him during a brief NHL preseason appearance leaves no doubt about his enormous potential. And again, we do have to recognize that Craig Button had Sam Bennett 3rd overall, Leon Draisaitl at number 6. That's all I have to say. There's nothing else to say. I'm just going to leave that right there. Bennett over Draisaitl. That's all. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. A little bit more of a laid-back, casual video today. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, hit that subscribe button if you're new. And, of course, hit that like button if you do want to see us cover maybe the 2016 affiliated draft prospect ranking. Of course, it would be after the 2015 draft, so that would be mega interesting to cover in a video. Make sure you comment down below, though, your thoughts on this top 30. What do you agree and disagree with looking back on it? And what are your thoughts on the hindsight from 5 years ago from the top prospects in the league? Let me know all your thoughts. Of course, share this video with your friends. Get the top 30 from 2015 out there. And click on this card for all of my hockey prospect content right on the playlist. I love you. Well, Max Domi loves you. And I'll see you in the next video or stream. Goodbye.